level of design. And we also heard that getting started is hard because of lack of credentials, especially when clients might look at the Upwork reputation and experience as key indicators that increase their trust and confidence in talent. Also, if you're somebody who has expert level skills, but you don't have a degree from a top university, maybe you don't yet have a work history with a well-known large client, in that case, we hope this can help you better market yourself as an expert and increase your chance of success when you're bidding on those expert level projects. From the side of the client customer, sometimes we hear that it can be frustrating screening talent for expert jobs. We hear that admin team members often help screen and set up the interviews, yet these admins lack the training to be able to evaluate the quality of work. As a result, hiring managers review irrelevant candidates, and it takes a lot of time. So if we can help to solve both these challenges, that expert talent struggles to stand out and that clients can't easily find experts when needed, we hope this results in more successful projects. If you're currently meeting your income goals, you're happy with your work you're winning, this might not be of interest to you, and that's okay. That's okay too. So next we'll talk a little bit about the requirements. When you submit your application, we're going to review your account, your Upwork profile and portfolio, and your prior assessment history to see if you meet the requirements. If you don't, we'll let you know what else is needed, and I'll go ahead and talk in more detail about each of these areas. So on the account and profile requirements. So to be evaluated, you need an Upwork account in good standing. All that means is that your account isn't suspended. If you are temporarily suspended for some reason, you can reapply or restart your application as soon as that's resolved. We're going to check that your Upwork profile shows that you sell services in the skill that you're applying for. We'll check your history of selling services either on Upwork or in your past work history if you're new. We're also going to check that that's a key skill that you offer service in on your profile by looking at things like your profile title, skill tags, and skimming your overview. We also require that you either have a 100% complete profile or that you have already earned a talent badge. And if you don't have a 100% complete profile and you need help, you can reach out to us. We're happy to help. And just a side note that the 100% complete profile is not only important for Upwork Skill Certifications, but it makes you eligible for top rated and other programs. And that's a credential that many clients trust as a strong positive signal. On to profile visibility. So since we're reviewing your portfolio to evaluate your work, your profile visibility needs to either be set to public or set to logged in users. Most of you probably already have your profile set to public, but for the few who may not, we would need to set it to public for the evaluation time to view your work so that we can complete that evaluation. And as mentioned earlier, this is a smaller program, and so for now it is invitation only. We do also welcome great talent referrals as part of the group that we prioritize for invites. So you can email our team at assessments@upwork.com if you know a great designer you'd like to refer. And Jared, if you could share that email, our team email in the chat too, that would be great. So onto portfolio requirements. In addition to the account and profile requirements, you need to have adequate information or content in your portfolio to be evaluated. So here's what we're screening for. We're looking for 4 or more separate work samples of the skill that's being evaluated. We're looking for portfolio items that are created from scratch. This is simply the way that our evaluations are set up and what we have the capacity to evaluate today. We don't have evaluation for CMS web design or certain other skills that use pre-designed elements like Powtoon. The work in your portfolio needs to be personally completed. This is something that happens very, very rarely. But if you have plagiarized material in your portfolio, if you've previously been suspended for plagiarized material, meaning that you have material that doesn't belong to you in your portfolio, but it's not credited to that other person, and then that could make you ineligible. If we see anything like that in your history, when we screen your application, we look at every single case one-on-one and would also reach out to you to discuss the situation. There's also a few skill-specific requirements. For creative and art direction, you need to describe the project role on the portfolio items so the team understands what you did. And then for brand identity, you know, a lot of people who design logos identify with brand identity, and that's, you know, that's totally fine. But for purposes of the evaluation, we evaluate logos with graphic design, and brand identity is a full branding package like typography, colors, etc., versus the individual components of the identity. And then for video portfolio items, where possible, the videos need to be embedded, and that just goes to you know, the quality of the portfolio. Prior assessment requirements. So just a final quick note on this. We did offer people the option to earn more than one skill certification when we first started, but we realized that that took more time, and we wanted to offer more people the first chance at earning the certification. So if you're an expert in a couple of the skills that we have assessments for, this could change in the future, but for now you'll need to select which one to have evaluated when you submit your application form. And if you were previously evaluated but didn't earn a skill certification at that time, you can reapply within 6 months as long as you have an updated portfolio. All right, that's it for requirements. Let's go on to the design and creative evaluation process. So here is a quick walkthrough. You get the invite to the program. If you're in live attendance, as I mentioned, you've already been invited. You're through this first step. Email us if you can't find your invite. We'll help you. The next step is to submit an application. It's a very brief form. Next, our admin team, usually Jarrett, he's going to check and see if you meet those requirements we just talked about and let you know whether or not you meet them. And then after that, you'll have a short period of time to polish your portfolio. We'll provide you with the latest and best resources that we have available to help you with polishing your portfolio. And you typically have about a week between the time you're screened and your portfolio goes into panel review, and you'll want to take that time to make any portfolio changes that you'd like to make. Your work samples in your portfolio and your overall portfolio, like that is the core of what we are evaluating. So you want to make sure that that's in the best shape you can have it for the best chance of success. After that, once you're all done with your portfolio, you just wait for it to be completed. Our average completion times are around 2 weeks, but they can vary. And for all of you here at the webinar today, we did invite more people at once just because we wanted to offer this opportunity for the live interaction on the webinar. So your wait times may be slightly longer than that, but we'll keep you updated as you go through the process. And then after it's complete, you'll receive the results. As mentioned, if you didn't pass, you can reapply in 6 months. If you did pass, you'll receive that skill certification on the profile. We've had a lot of requests from people who don't pass that they would love to have portfolio feedback. Unfortunately, that's not something we're equipped to provide today. However, we built this webinar to hopefully provide you, really great insight into what is scored and how the scoring works. And we've also are investing in creating an updated webinar and best portfolio practices, which will hopefully be coming out in the next month to also, help people prepare. And I realize if you're going into evaluation next week, that's too late. You can always delay your evaluation if for some reason you wanted to wait for that webinar. Okay, so this slide gives you a visual of the evaluation process. And you can see here, we start with a screening. The next step is that you have the time to prepare your portfolio. And then after that, when your portfolio is prepared and you hit that deadline for going into evaluation, which will be informed of as part of the application process, what your specific deadline is, then your Upwork portfolio is separately assigned to 2 evaluators. Both of those evaluators review your work independently, and we're going to talk about the criteria for that later, and they grade your work. And then Chris on our team collects and compares those scores to calculate final scores. And the process usually takes 1 to 2 weeks. Sometimes there's a disagreement between the two evaluators who score it. And in those cases, we have to have additional evaluator reviews, and so it can take more time. A little bit about evaluator qualifications. Excuse me. So each evaluator has earned an Upwork Skill Certification in the design and creative field. They have experience in the skill or skills that they help to evaluate. They're trained in the standards and measures for scoring. We test everybody on their scoring abilities before they start evaluating live. And then we have continuous quality monitoring. So every single evaluation that's completed is reviewed by a human, 2 members of our team. And as I mentioned before, each evaluator review is done independently. So the person that's evaluating your portfolio has no idea who the other person is evaluating your portfolio. And then we calibrate those scores and we research the discrepancies. Okay, moving on to what is evaluated. So the evaluation is going to measure the work within your Upwork portfolio and the overall quality of your entire Upwork portfolio. Generally, the evaluators are going to look at the details of your first samples within the portfolio. They'll go beyond that if they need to, but those are usually going to get the most deep look. And those are measured against a predefined set of requirements. What we're trying to identify is expert level talent. I know that terms means different things to different people. For the current certifications, it means a level of expertise that would be expected from a typical large Upwork enterprise client seeking an expert. And we define this level based on working directly with large clients and from enterprise client feedback. We estimate that most people need an average of 3 or more years work experience to gain the level of skill needed to pass at a minimum. In addition, people who specialize in a particular work area and get a deep understanding of that one particular craft are on average more likely to pass. Another side note is, this is not a measure of whether or not you're great at what you do. This is a measure of whether your work and specifically your Upwork portfolio content compares to this framework of expectations, which we're going to talk about. There's many top-rated freelancers who go through the assessment and they don't pass. There's no impact to you if you don't pass. There's nothing on your, as mentioned before, there's nothing on your profile, and you can reapply in 6 months with an updated portfolio. On to how work is scored. So evaluators score your work samples on each of these dimensions, and not all dimensions are applicable to all work. So for design and creative fields, we're looking at layout and information hierarchy, overall creativity, technical tool aptitude. For motion graphics and animation, we're also looking at your use of audio, animation, pace, and meaningful motion. If you have a demo reel for your profile video, we will also look at that. And for videography or video editing, we're also looking at those 2 specific skills. And then in addition to scoring your individual work samples, the evaluators are going to evaluate the quality of your overall portfolio. As mentioned before, not all these dimensions are applicable to everybody's body of work. So if it's not applicable, it's just skipped. It doesn't impact the score. I am going to hand this over to Kyle now, and he will go into more depth on each of these dimensions.
Thank you, Liz. So I'll go over a few of these. The first one is applicable for all of the different disciplines, and that's to start out with layout and information hierarchy. So your work has a strong sense of hierarchy, and there's a clear meaning behind what initially draws the eye and the layout throughout the design. We're also looking if it's design and not art, for example. Another important part is creativity, obviously. So portfolio items are consistently innovative and unique. Also looking for fresh designs, something that's new. Also looking for technical tool aptitude. So your work shows exceptional tool mastery and skills, as well as a deep understanding of the tool feature set. Looking for modern tools for whatever discipline that you're being evaluated for, and matches current industry standards for that area of expertise. With all of your portfolio items, here's some things that are helpful: before and after shots, the project goals, so we have some understanding of what the project was about, what you learned from it, any accomplishments with the project, and also the tools you used. That goes up to the above with technical tool aptitude. All of this is helpful and demonstrates your mastery of a discipline. Moving on to some of the specific disciplines with motion graphics. We're also looking for a demo reel. A demo reel isn't required for the evaluation, but if you have one in your portfolio, we'll evaluate it. We're looking for strong design skills with this: composition, color, typography, and timing and compositing. We're also looking at attention to detail and organization, various forms of 2D and 3D animation, strong post-production or video effects skills, like compositing, tracking, keying, and rotoscoping. We're also looking at the breadth of the content, and if you have motion content for a variety of broadcast and digital video platforms. Also, your compilation with a preference for reels that are compiled versus a trailer or a collection of content. Audio is very important, so how you use that and if it's well edited. Animation, vector 3D animation has a strong sense of design and illustration. Your work also demonstrates a variety of animation styles, seamless character rigging, and world building. Pace, this is very important. Video clips are clearly cut to music in a purposeful way. Meaningful motion, this goes up to the above. An expert in 2D and 3D animation, compositing, live action, and experimentation. Strong keyframing ability and a solid understanding of finesse and timing. Exploration of new animation styles and techniques, and a strong understanding across all digital platforms, and strong attention to detail and pixel precision. Moving on to videography, along with the main dimensions that we look at, we're also looking for strong camera skills, shot composition, use of depth of field and exposure and lighting, the subject focus, and strong camera movement, including bimal work, slide, and aerial, along with creative and unique shots. With all of that, the overall image quality also shows high quality equipment and technical expertise. For video editing and post-production skills, we're looking for strong editing and shot selection with an emphasis on storytelling, great pace and timing, strategic use of transitions, strong music and or sound effects, pacing edits to the music and beat, consistent color correction, and exposure adjustment. All shots seem to fit together aesthetically, and good use of graphics or motion graphics when applicable. I think Liz has some more information on scoring.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kyle. So I wanted to make one more point, and that is, the team, we often get feedback and we send out surveys for people who go through the assessment. We often get feedback on that, or we get questions that, people are concerned about the subjectivity and bias in scoring. And, I think that's a valid concern, and that's one that we took into account in setting up this process. So we've had over 20 evaluators evaluate the same samples with consistent results with the evaluators that we use for this program, and they've completed thousands of evaluations. As I mentioned before, anytime we have an evaluator scoring disparity, we resolve it through a more in-depth review process with those evaluators and additional evaluators when needed. So while the process isn't perfect, I do have confidence in it. And we also get really great feedback from clients and internal team members when they're reviewing those skill certified profiles. So that is it for scoring. And we'll talk a little bit about your portfolio. I'll hand it over to Will.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Liz. All right. So for your portfolio, a reminder for this evaluation, your portfolio is the sole source of truth for your score or your result. This includes the quality of each individual piece in the portfolio, how you describe it, and how your whole portfolio is curated overall. So think back to the dimensions discussed here and how you're presenting your work. Are you presenting it in a way that best shows your expertise? For instance, did you do an awesome image edit that you're showing both the final and the before picture? Is there a detail about the technical challenges with a particular project and how you overcame it? And are there any specific metrics or results that you can share that your project achieved? So how can you showcase your work to make a big difference? Now we have a full webinar about this topic, and it'll get shared in the chat here. We actually do a lot of webinars on how to support different aspects of your profile and portfolio, but this is a really in-depth topic, and it's not possible to do it justice with just this webinar. So we plan on inviting you to the next webinar. So if that's of interest, maybe you want to wait on your application until afterwards in case you want to make some additional changes to that portfolio. But a few general comments. Curate, curate, curate. Is your portfolio up to date? Have you removed old or irrelevant items? And how many work samples do you have? If you have multiple images for a project, they can be grouped together within a single portfolio item, like in a carousel view, for example. You want to be a show-off. If someone opens your portfolio item, you've got their attention. And being a show-off to take the opportunity to really tell what's cool about the project and what you did. You can talk about things like the mood you were trying to create, the specific target audience you were trying to reach, perhaps a certain metric you were looking to accomplish. And you can also mention things about specific technical challenges you faced and how you overcame them. Even a sentence or two can be very helpful, but it's nice to create some context around your items. Don't settle for mediocre samples. Sometimes it can be frustrating. Maybe you have trouble getting the right size portfolio item or something like that. But we're here and we're happy to help you if you run into a problem or if you have any questions. Shoot us an email. We're here as a resource. Change your shoes. This is an important one. Think about what you would think through a client's eyes. Imagine what sort of information you might want if you were hiring a designer to help you with your project. Sometimes looking at things from a different perspective can also help you discover key things you'd like to mention about your work in your portfolio. It's sort of like when you proofread your own writing. Sometimes you see what you want to see rather than what's actually there. Next up, we're going to talk about resources. We have a lot of amazing resources to assist you, and we're going to put these links into the chat so you can take advantage of these later. But these are just a few resources that provide insights on some current trends, best practices that you may want to consider if you're updating your portfolio. So Chris will go ahead and put those links in the chat now for us. First, there's a link to a post about 4 tips to improve your portfolio. And it sounds pretty basic, but it actually has really rich information and neat digestible ideas, like including a testimonial in your portfolio. Next, Chris will be sharing links to enhance your portfolio, a help article. Now, this article discusses a number of factors that may boost your chances of winning jobs, which includes some great portfolio quality tips. You can email us and we can help you one-on-one. You can email support@upwork.com or reach out via the support chat. We have available agents 24 hours a day, but you can also email assessments@upwork.com to reach our specific team. And we're happy to help, but we're a smaller team, so you won't have that 24-hour coverage like you will with support at upwork.com. But that will give you the one-on-one help from one of our success partners on how to use all the features in your Upwork portfolio. So finally, we have a few links from the community forum, which is a fantastic place for resources. It's a group of very lively community members who are often very supportive of one another. And these might be additional resources for you to view, past conversations, or maybe start a conversation of your own. So these 2 links are for our general freelancer board and also a board specifically designed for design and creative talent. Next up, I'm going to go to frequently asked questions. Now, these were pulled, I think, primarily from our community forum boards. So it's a great place for finding information, posing questions, stuff like that. So what if all of my portfolio items are under an NDA? And it happens. The current evaluation requires work samples within your Upwork portfolio. So unfortunately, we don't have an alternative method available to evaluate you if you don't have anything in your portfolio. What if I fail? You are eligible to update your portfolio and resubmit every 6 months, as Liz mentioned earlier, and nothing displays on your profile if you do not pass. Can I get more than one certification? Currently, we're offering one free certification to those who are qualified. We may be considering additional opportunities to earn more than that in the future, but at the moment, it's just the one. Do the 4 portfolio work samples need to be separate portfolio items? Yes, absolutely. They do need to be separate items and can't be combined within a single portfolio item. So using an example earlier, if you have a before and after picture of an edit you did, that's technically just one portfolio item. Can I add portfolio items while my application is in the evaluation process? Totally up to you. Since we don't know the exact date and time that your work samples will be reviewed, if you're adding portfolio items during this window, you won't know which version of your portfolio was evaluated, with or without. So up to you. Can I add projects that I completed outside of Upwork? Absolutely. The portfolio items don't have to be limited to projects you just did on Upwork with Upwork clients, but if you did them with an external client, you do need to add them into your Upwork portfolio to be part of this process. If my contract is still open, but I've completed my work, can it be used for an evaluation? Absolutely. You can add the work to your portfolio, assuming you have the client's approval to do so. Always a best practice. Can my agency apply for an Upwork Skill Certification? Great question. Upwork Skill Certifications currently can only be displayed on an individual profile. Also, the tests are designed to be taken by an individual, so you're welcome to submit some people from your agency to receive an invitation for this process. And also, if you have ideas on how these other credentials would help you build your business on Upwork, we'd love to hear about it. This is an evolving process. I recently added portfolio items from an Upwork contract. Why is this under review? When you link portfolio items to past Upwork contracts, the system automatically emails the client and they're given 3 days to approve the link before the item is actually displayed on your profile. That's because it links back to them and all their profile there. So they want to make sure that they've okayed that. So check out the Add Portfolio Items section of this help article for more information. Link there. And now we're going to go to the live Q&A. There's actually a link here I'd like to share here, Chris or Jared, if you can go ahead and drop this in. Before we go to the Q&A, I'd like to share a link to a feedback form so everyone has a chance to grab that link. This is a really short survey and we'd love to hear your honest feedback on this webinar so we can best serve you for future resources. All right, now let's go to your questions.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Will. Let me see what we have for questions here. So first question, hello, I've created some portfolios in my profile. Some photos are vertical, but it seems like the system only allows for horizontal oriented ones. Thank you. If you are having any trouble with getting your portfolio to using the features in your Upwork portfolio to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, you can email support@upwork.com. You can email our team, assessments@upwork.com. We probably have a little bit more resources on our team to be able to provide you, some one-on-one help with that. If you just need a simple spec or something like that, the support team can help, but we will help you look into those individual situations so that you can get your portfolio looking as good as possible. The next question is, if you don't pass, will you tell us why we didn't pass and what to do to improve, and can you reapply? So we don't have the ability right now. We're not equipped to be able to provide feedback on the results from the individual reviews, and this webinar, as well as the portfolio webinar that we'll have coming out in about a month, is really meant to equip you to understand what is being reviewed. And while I know it is not the same as like having that exact feedback. Hopefully it is helpful in understanding what's being looked at. And as far as reapplying, you can reapply in 6 months. The only exception is if somebody does have an issue with plagiarized content. Again, we always reach out one-on-one to review those situations, but that is the only situation we currently have that could potentially make you ineligible to reapply. The next question is, so to display brand identity, would you suggest using mock-ups of brand guidelines? And so I think this question is in regards to earlier in the webinar, I mentioned that logo design, we generally put under graphic design, and brand identity is looking for, more full evidence of brand identity. And, everybody, you're all going to have your own styles of how you create your portfolio, but maybe Kyle and Will, would each or both of you have suggestions on how to best display brand identity projects, or some things to consider?
From a designer perspective, I'll go ahead and jump in here. Brand identity, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, is more than simply just creating a logo. It's the typography, it's the colors, it's the font, it's the voice of the company. So a way that I would present that is with a brand identity sheet. So when I have my portfolio item, I'll have Acme logo, and then maybe on a carousel view, I will have the brand identity guide, which will show the colors, the typography, and any related theme items. And that would be a better presentation of brand identity from my perspective. Kyle, is that accurate from yours?
Yeah, definitely, I agree. So, the more you add, the better. So if you have examples of how you came up with the brand identity, that's really good too. So what informed the decision of choosing this font or the colors and the process of that, and seeing it applied to different mediums. Like if you're coming up with a brand for like a shampoo company, how does that go on the bottle? How does it relate to the website? How does it relate on their Instagram feed? All of this, the more the better. So that's what we're really looking for.
Great, thanks, Will and Kyle. The next question is, how many videos need to be showcased in the video editing dimensions? For all skills, we're looking for a minimum of 4 portfolio samples. So that's regardless of skill. Also, does the video need to be a certain time length, or shorter videos are also okay? So we don't have a specific, like there isn't a specific rule, but I'm sure there is some sort of best practice. I don't know, Kyle, I know you don't work in the video area as much. Is this anything that you would have a comment on?
Yeah, I don't do, except very early on, I did some video evaluations, but again, it's you want to see at least 4 samples for the length of time. As long as it's a high quality and you're hitting all the beats. I mean, a commercial can be 30 seconds, which is sufficient. You might have a whole documentary. You might want to edit that down for a portfolio.
Will, do you have any additional comments on that one?
No, sorry, I was looking through the questions one more time.
Just on video length and evaluating portfolios. Somebody asked, could there be too short of a video, and just wondered if you had an opinion on that.
No, I do a lot of sizzle reels, which are very short presentations. I typically don't find myself doing one shorter than maybe 10 seconds, but there are plenty of like Instagram ads and things like that, which are very brief. So I don't think there's a minimum really, as long as you're conveying an idea with confidence and skill.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think one thing to keep in mind is when, every client is different and every person who's looking for a freelancer is different, but what we're looking for when we're evaluating the portfolio is the same thing that a discerning hiring manager would look at when looking at your portfolio. And so, you know, how much video you have, you can probably display a lot of expertise in a very short period of time. And if you have a video sample that doesn't display your expertise until X amount in, you might lose somebody's like attention until they get to that point. And that's just kind of like the natural human, you know, the natural human inclination. So, I mean, just things to keep in mind. Again, everybody chooses to display their work differently, and every single project is unique. Could we get a definitive list of all the things mentioned that were looked for? We have in the help article, there's a list of the dimensions that are looked at, and then we will publish a link to this webinar, so you can like go to that exact screenshot and pause it, because I think for the most part we had the verbiage on the slides as well as what we were discussing. But if that doesn't cover it and there's anything else you need, you just let us know and we're happy to, you know, help out. I'm going to ask a stupid question here. No such thing as a stupid question, right? I have more than 7 years of experience doing videography and video editing. This is what I'm being assessed for, but English is my second language. And in my work description, there might be some grammatical errors. Does that impact my assessment? No, it does not. I mean, to some degree, if the way that you have your portfolio put together, you have so many errors that it just makes the portfolio like you can't understand it. I think everybody understands, or most people on Upwork understands, that we're working with a global talent community and everybody doesn't have the same first language. And so most people like accept some sort of, like they accept that. They're like, okay, I can tell this is a native speaker. It looks like this person is not a native speaker, but I think as long as it's done reasonably well, you know, you're going to be okay. And from an evaluation perspective, you're not going to get, you know, discounted for that again, unless it like grossly impacts the quality of your portfolio.
A good idea on this one too. If you would like fresh eyes on your portfolio, or for proofreading, you can hire a freelancer on Upwork to do it.
Any other thoughts, Kyle?
No, I think you summarized it great.
Okay, great. Are there specific dimension suggestions for uploading examples of work? Oh, I don't know what these are offhand. I think that it's in the help article for design. Do you know?
I believe it
Anything?
also says when you go to upload it, it says preferred dimensions. I believe when you go to upload it, it'll give you, maximum size or a aspect ratio.
Thank you. Again, if you have any issues, you can't find the information, just email. We'll be happy to help. How do you showcase your work in an interesting way rather than just adding the document? I always see people adding the logo onto a phone screen or actually showing the business cards in a photo setting. I try to find stock images that I can use for that, but I can never find anything. Do you have any suggestions on where to look?
Absolutely.
Kyle or Will?
Yeah, this is something that actually a topic that we did when we were creating the deck. I call it staging the image. So if you create a flyer or a logo, you can simply just slap it on there, or you can stage it in a scene, like a pile of business cards with one sort of facing you. For these types of stock imagery, there's a whole bunch of resources for them. There's Shutterstock. The one I personally use is Adobe stock images, but there's hundreds of resources there. I would do stock photo reviews on Google, and it'll give you the top 10. But a lot of great resources out there you should be able to find.
One thing to add to that is I wouldn't just put the staged version on there. I would also put your flat, clean version. So don't do one or the other, have both.
Great tips, thank you. I'm primarily a 2D artist, but I do also have a skill in 3D. Can I also include that side of my work in my portfolio? Absolutely, you can display multiple skills in your portfolio. It's just that if you submit an application for 2D, you'll need 4 samples of 2D, and then you can have whatever else you want to have in there. hello, do you have examples of complete profiles that are considered best in class to help understand visually? So this is something, you know, when we first started putting together this webinar, I was hoping we could contain like best portfolio practices and tips along with this content, and it's just too much information. And so Will shared out some portfolio information, some prior webinars that we've created, and we've learned so much, you know, through this evaluation process and by looking at so many profiles that we're also making, you know, a really deep update to that content, and we'll have that out in about a month. So if you don't feel equipped, if you just want to wait for whatever reason, you're welcome to wait until that resource comes out. You know, I don't know if it's how impactful that will be compared to the resources that we have today. But as part of that, we'll have some examples. Like, I don't have specific profile links I can share with you, but we'll have examples of like, here's a visual of you know, how one portfolio item looks and like something you might be able to do to improve it, or maybe just some best in class examples. We don't have it completely done yet, but that's definitely something that we will have included. So does the fact that I haven't landed any clients in Upwork impact my evaluation? And in any way? No, it doesn't. You don't require any Upwork history for the evaluation. The only way it would impact you is that, you know, we look either to your project history on Upwork or your work history and how your profile, well, we're always looking at how your profile is set up, but you just want to make sure your profile reflects that skill, is all. We have a question about impact of copywriting. I don't think that copywriting would impact an evaluation. Kyle, is there ever a time when copywriting would have an impact?
No, I don't believe I've ever run across one where we're looking at the copywriting, so.
Okay.
There is, I guess I would say in some cases, if all your portfolio items are using lorem ipsum, that's kind of a red flag that it might be not a real project. So I try to avoid that if possible. But there's sometimes where you need to use it where your role might have been up to the copywriting phase and you didn't have final copy. So it's not a deal breaker, but.
And we are looking for actual client projects. So we're looking for projects that you actually completed for a client versus, you know, like mock-ups that you completed for a experiment. I don't know if there would ever be a case when we would look. Kyle, is there ever a case you think when a mock-up, there's another related question to this about, you know, using mock-ups in the portfolio?
Having some network issues. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Maybe
So
could...
let me read the exact question. It says, I've used mockups for some of my graphic design projects to give the client a better idea of my design. Is it enough if I credit the site I got the mockup from? So, okay, I'm sorry. I think I misread this. I think this has to do with content. So I don't know if I completely understand what this question is. I think this one is probably better handled one-on-one to make sure we understand exactly what you're asking. Go ahead, Will.
I think it's related to a question that comes up a lot, and Kyle and Liz would be helpful on this. Let's say all my clients have NDAs. I can't post any of my portfolio items. If I instead make up a client and create work similar to what I did for them and make up work for Acme Incorporated, it's clearly not a real entity, but I did the work and I put it up there. Is that mocked up portfolio item a valid portfolio item for this process?
We're really looking for client work. I can't say that a mocked up portfolio item would never qualify if you have multiple examples of your own work and you also have a mocked up example in your portfolio. Kyle, do you have any additional comments on that? I think Kyle has a little a connectivity issue, you know, but part of working with a client is getting those requirements and getting everything you need to create the design. So it's different just creating a mock-up versus having actual client work, but the evaluation is intended to evaluate client work, actual completed projects. Hi, thanks for this webinar. I am a motion designer, so I have many videos. I have added to YouTube or Vimeo. Another embed link is okay to add. So I'm not sure if I understand this exact question. Will, do you understand this question?
I think it's just referring to different methods of embedding. I mean, YouTube and Vimeo are probably the most commonly used ones, but I'm certain the platform itself accommodates other ones as long as they're one of your standard players.
Again, you can email us individually if you need help with a specific instance. And I'm sorry, it looks like we lost Kyle, so I'm not sure if he'll rejoin in the next few minutes or not. The next question is about, okay, so you received an invite. Somebody says, I received an invite on my founder's profile for design assessment. The designs were done by our UI designer. Whose profile do I add the portfolio to? So currently we don't have an agency. We don't have an agency evaluation because we don't have the ability to display a certification on an agency today. It's only for an individual. So if you receive an invite and it's not relevant to you, but it's relevant to a team member, you can email us and just let us know, and we are happy to evaluate that team member's portfolio. And then the work should be in whoever's portfolio who completed the work. And if the team member completed the work as part of a team effort, that can be noted in the portfolio item. You know, this work was done as part of a large team, and here is what I did, type of thing. All right, glad you made it back, Kyle. What is my next? No worries. What is my next step if I want to apply? You should have an email with a link in it. If you don't, email us, assessments@upwork.com. Jarrett, can you put that out in chat again if it hasn't been out there for a while? Just email us or it will help you. I'm an infographic specialist. Do I choose graphic design? Yes. I don't know if I understand this question. Sometimes our customers send us themes from websites like Envato and ask us to edit. Is there a problem if we put these videos on the portfolio? I'm not familiar with Envato.
So that's a theme source for WordPress for website design. So you can design a website from scratch using a variety of coding languages, or you can use a WordPress pre-developed theme where it's sort of like got building blocks and an established theme. So it's not technically 100% original content because you didn't code it. It's similar to using stock imagery and modifications. Would that still pass the test on the evaluation there?
So right now we don't have evaluations related to CMS design. So if you're doing WordPress design, it's probably not going to fit. Kyle, I don't know if you want to speak any more to the nuances of this.
Yeah, we run into it a lot. You can't always tell, obviously, if it's a theme or something from scratch, but in general, the high quality ones, there's a lot more creativity involved. You can usually tell when a pre-built theme is used, so it doesn't necessarily help, but it might not hinder you as well. So the more unique items really stand out.
Thank you.
would it be fair to say that if they're using some base building block, then as long as they've made it completely unique and different, then it is still fine? But if they're using just a stock one, it is not.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, these kind of stand out. So we review thousands of portfolios, and you can really tell when it's unique work compared to using a lot of stock or pre-built things.
Great, thank you. Let's see, if we have another question. So somebody asked, if I want to apply for brand identity, can I also include what may have been the different materials produced offline or online? Or are these considered more as graphic design? Because branding identity often includes the development of visual identity in the different materials.
I'm interpreting that to show, would it be helpful for me to display my working files, like my mock-ups and sketches of how I got from point A to point Z? That's my interpretation of that. And if that's the case, would that be helpful as including in the portfolio item?
To me, it's great to see. I love seeing sketches and how you got from point A to Z. So any of that is really helpful and shows design thinking.
It helps the clients too, like they understand how you work. It gives them a really good idea of what it's like to work with you when you add that extra detail to your portfolio.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
All right, I think that concludes the questions that we can answer on this call. There were a few questions that were a little specific or that we may not have gotten to. So you can email us at assessments@upwork.com and we are more than happy to help you. Again, I'm really appreciative that you took your time to join us in this webinar today. And please do take the time to complete the survey that Will filled out earlier so we can understand how this is helpful and how we can improve.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.